All right, everybody, we are back. It is another edition here of Friday Coffee and Celtics. It's the final week of the NBA regular season. Celtics getting ready for the playoffs. We've got a special guest here that we got a special announcement coming with, so make sure that you guys are sticking around. We're going to talk a little bit about the Celtic City documentary and a special announcement that will go along with the upcoming episode. You do not want to miss. You guys know the deal. This is Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will Beer checking in. How you doing? How you living? I'm riding solo today. My co-host Greg feeling a little under the weather today, so it's okay. It's the end of the NBA regular season, and sometimes you got to rest up. The playoffs are ahead of us here. It's the last week, so we're going to get ready for some big things we got coming up here as we will be rocking and rolling with all the twists and turns that come along with a Celtics playoff run as they look for Banner 19. But the show must go on, so we are here today with Coffee and Celtics. As you all know, we are sponsored by Wood Island Media for this episode. Wood Island Media, a powerhouse production company for the past decade, specializing in celebrity, branded, and social content, based in Los Angeles, but roots in Boston. And speaking of Boston, we have a special guest joining us today. He is the founder of Mathmatik Athletics. You have seen me rocking a lot of his gear here today. Got the Dorchester jersey on. We've got my man, Peter Edouard, joining us today. What's going on, man? Appreciate you being here.
Well, what's up, man? Good to see you again, man. Congratulations on the wedding and all that good stuff, man.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. We got to link up in Boston when Greg and I shot up to, once again, shout out to my wife, letting me dip right after the wedding, go host an event for HBO at the Harp. You were nice enough to come through, man. I know we've been kind of linking up here for the last month or two via text, email. Obviously, I've been a big fan of what you guys have been doing with the jersey collection. All good in the hood. Mathmatik Athletics. Let's actually just start here, man, because I think I want the people to know a little bit more about you and the company. And I see more and more when they go to the wide shots of the fans at the TD Garden.
Yeah.
Like, you can pick these out, right? That's got to be a pretty cool feeling. You're like, I see one there, I see one here, whether it's a Dorchester, a Mattapan, or Roxbury. So tell us a little bit about the company, how it was founded, and where you guys are at today.
Yeah. So, man, I grew up in the era of, the Mitchell and Ness, the $300 jerseys with Cam and Fabulous.
So back in the day, real quick, that was when you'd have to order them on the black market to get the China joints, but they came in 3 months or whatever, and it was $30 or something.
You feel me? So you remember those days. So that I was inspired off of that, and me not having the funds to actually buy it. I'm a son of an immigrant, so my mom was always like, we have it at home, or we could make it our own. You know what I mean? So we always had that mentality of making it at your house, or creating it within whatever resources that you had. So not being able to afford a Mitchell and Ness jersey, I was like, yo, how do I do this? And I started doing sportswear design since then. And 2014, I was designing jerseys for high schools in the city. So it really just started from that, really working with some of the high schools, and then giving the high school kids the same type of platform that they would get at an NCAA high-powered program. So it's kind of where it came from. So.
Yeah, who were some of the first high schools that you were working with? Because I know when we talked, you went to Charlestown High, right?
Yep. Yeah. So we started with Bryan High School. We did their jerseys, their warm-ups, their varsity jackets. We hooked them up with everything, and then once they started playing other teams, the coaches were like, "Yo, where can we get ours?" So I just started reaching out to some of the other teams that they were playing, and we just started collecting teams, man. So we had I think at the end of 2016, we had about 12 basketball programs in the state of Mass. So we just kind of like, placed our flag right there as like a, team, company that designed uniform for high school programs.
Yeah, and so now today, when you go to your website here, which I want to plug here, mathmaticathletics.com. Make sure you guys go check that out. I got it here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the IG is at the bottom of the screen right now. And specifically, man, the ones that, that really kind of caught my eyes, actually, there's two things. One, Dana Barros, friend of the program here, that's been on several times. I don't know if it was just scrolling through his IG or doing some research. I was like, oh, damn, he's got the Zavarian jersey on. You think back to his time here. And I was like, I actually didn't know for a long time where that came from. And I'll let you tell me exactly when it started. But with these Banner City jerseys here, I started seeing Dart Adams, wear those on Twitter and on IG. And I started doing some research. I was like, oh, this is where Dana got that from. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, which, by the way, y'all should make sure you subscribe, click that link. Right now, I've got the Dorchester version on right here, which actually I did read this. Peter, tell me, is Dorchester still the number one selling Banner City jersey edition?
Hey, shout out to Dorchester, man. Dorchester show love, man. I mean, also it's the biggest like neighborhood too. So
right.
Yeah, Dorchester been showing insane.
I try to tell people, man, Dorchester, like, because people think of more like New York, they're like the 5 boroughs, right? And Dorchester is more like, I think it's like 13 towns or municipalities, whatever you want to call it, that make it up. And I'm like, man, Dorchester's got like 5 different versions of Dorchester, right? Because it depends like where you are and where you are and grew up and stuff. And I know like at the event we met up with my guy Brandon Wahlberg, B. Wally showed up there. He had the Dorchester on as well. Like I said, you see it everywhere. So tell us a little bit about how this one specifically, and obviously lining up with the Celtics winning Banner 18, like this collaboration is something that I feel like I see more and more of around. So tell us a little bit about this specific jersey, the one that I got on right now.
Yeah, so honestly, man, I'll be honest with you, man. It was trial and error. We first started with South End, Southie, and I think it was Roxbury. And as soon as, because Dart and I was we were doing a photo shoot, and we were in the South End, and I was like, I love the aesthetic of the South End. You got the the brownstones, and I was like, I'm thinking about the price point, and my background is in sportswear and merchandising, so I'm positioning the collection with the neighborhood. And with the South End being that it's a affluent neighborhood, I was like, I'm gonna create the marketing around there. So as soon as we posted like the content from Roxbury, South End, and then Southie, Dorchester was like, yo, what about Dorchester? Y'all serious? And then I was like, oh snap! I wasn't thinking about it that way. And then we rolled out. So we rolled out Dorchester, but a lot of the stuff that we put on the site in the collection is user generated. So it's like it's the demand from the people that are from the community. So that's kind of how it really became like basically the staple for the collection. So Dorchester really showed out. It was like, yo, nah. We need Dorchester ASAP. So
And so I like the way that you talk about it being kind of user generated, right? Like if the demand's there, I'm there. That's kind of like the plan of what it is. So if somebody right now is listening to this and they're like, damn, I wonder if my neighborhood's gonna get on there, is the best way for them to hit you up is just honestly DMs are open. We'll see what happens, but you tell me, DMs are open. What's the best way to honestly let you know what they want to see?
Dart was literally like the voice of the city. So every time someone was like, yo, what about Lynn, what about Quincy? And then we get into a whole, well, technically it's not Boston, but then it was like, if there's enough folks that are like, yo, what about us? And it kind of made me realize, I'm like, yeah, at the end of the day, people are big fans of the C's. And it's not just Boston, it's not just like Boston. It's like you got folks in Salem that are huge C's fans. So it's like, should we like exclude them? It's like, nah, like I think I want to be able to like make it be more inclusive. We have folks, we had shout out to my guy Fleece. He drove all the way from New York. He's a Celtics dude. He drove all the way from New York to be at the watch party. So it's like, why not, man? So we're all
Yeah.
inclusive, man. We try to, create a dope vibe and community for folks who really genuinely love the C's and want to see them win and try to get, 19 up there. So
Coming up, man, 19, the postseason is here. And, I'll tell you this, man. So me and Greg, who, live down here in Austin, Texas and do a Celtics podcast, can tell you Celtics fans are everywhere, man. When we go to a Spurs game in San Antonio and, granted, up until them getting Wemby, they haven't been all that great, for parts of the time that we've been down here. But you go down there, man, and there is Celtics fans everywhere. And I feel like watching certain broadcasts, you can see just like, Celtics take over these arenas, and on the road. And so it is kind of crazy to see the way that Celtic love can kind of spread. And so I want to circle back here and talk a little bit more about the Celtics, because you and I were catching up. I know originally you were born in Miami and then came to Boston. So tell me a little bit more about your connection to the Celtics and then how that drove kind of this, I don't know if it's an official partnership, unofficial partnership, whatever you want to call it with these jerseys, but tell us a little bit about your connection to the Celtics.
yeah. See, I knew this question was going to come. You know what I mean? But I'll say this. Yeah, I was born in Miami, and I got a chance to see, the Celtics pummel my team a lot. But I'll say this though: the moment, and I've lived in Boston for over 20 years, and the moment when I was happy, I was genuinely happy to see a championship, like a Celtics championship, was when KG and Ray Allen finally got his. I'm an NBA fan. I love the NBA.
Yeah.
I grew up watching, like, I was, fan of Jordan, fan of Kobe, fan of LeBron. But when I saw KG finally get his and Ray Allen, I was like, I'm not an emotional guy, but when KG was like, anything is possible, bro, I was like, wow, I rock with the C's. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I'll say that. You know what I mean? So
No, and we talk about that as a foundational moment for our podcast, right? Like that team is what took for me personally, what took the Celtics to the next level. Like I grew up in Boston, grew up in Dorchester until I moved to Texas when I was like 22. So first 22, 23 years of my life were all spent
yeah,
in Boston. Went to Boston Latin School, went to UMass Amherst. So everything was very Boston centric. And for most of my life, like I played, like baseball was my better sport, like growing up. And so like the Red Sox were always kind of number one. And then obviously with Tom Brady and the Patriots coming up, like it became kind of a battle for like them and the Celtics. Cause like I loved basketball, but let's just be real, up until that time. And this is where we're trending to in the Celtic City documentary right now, is that void that was left for various reasons that we're going to discuss. When you get to the mid 90s, when I was a child, when you get to the end of the 90s, even with Paul Pierce, and you start to get hope, and then it kind of drops back down again until you get to Ray Allen and KG. And then, like you said, there's some emotional connection to that team. I think part of it has a lot to do with KG's personality, if we're just being real. Like, I think it's the way that he plays, he emotes, he talks. It's just like, man, I want to run through a fucking wall for this guy, right? Like, and so it really is kind of one of the landmark or staple moments for us in the show even existing, is that team. And then kind of what took just my love of sports in general, but like that hierarchy. And
yeah,
it really just kind of catapulted the Celtics to like number one. There's no doubt. Still follow the Red Sox, Patriots, love it, all about it.
yeah.
But it's what really took the Celtics to the next level. So I think it's so fascinating hearing your story of, kind of finding like, when did you really connect to the Celtics? And it's from that team. And now here we are today, where you're repping, every neighborhood with the Celtics jersey, the banner 18. And that kind of leads to my next question here. If the Celtics win it again this year, man, are we going to get a 19 update, or what does that look like?
We have that in the chamber, man. We definitely have that in the chamber.
I'm not trying to give away state secrets.
But no, going back to what you were saying, we don't have an official partnership with the C's, and ideally, like we're working to try to see what we have to do to be an official watch party
Mm-hmm.
partner. Obviously, like we had a photo shoot. A lot of our campaigns had stuff within the arena. I was lucky enough to get in the arena to do the photo shoot there.
Yeah.
And I had a photo of Brad Stevens too. But yeah, I mean, ideally, like we love to, have some type of partnership, and I feel like, what we're doing aligns with the Celtics and, their community initiative. And yeah, like at the end of the day, like I feel like we're contributing to the culture just as you are, and yeah, that's pretty much it, man. So whoever's in the office, the front office, man, holla at us, man. Like what's
There you go, man. Yeah, we'll have to get some people on the case there. See what we can make happen. But I want to shift the focus here to the Celtic City documentary here. And this is going to lead up to something that I know that you guys are doing that's coinciding with this upcoming episode. But I want to kind of get just your thoughts in general on the documentary so far. Greg and I have kind of been jumping in and out with some of our thoughts. Obviously, for episode 5, you met us there. We were at the Harp watching that episode. But I think really this documentary to me has been, first of all, I think it's been just really well done. Shout out to HBO and the folks at Ringer Films that put it together. And I think part of it that is so great, and you talked about the community, the culture, and like, Boston has a very interesting history, we can say, when it comes to that. And they haven't shied away from it in this documentary. And I like the way that it's kind of blended everything with the history of the Celtics, the timeline of a basketball team, the NBA, but then also what is happening in the city. So I'm just curious to get your perspective on, watching this documentary right now, what have been some of the things that maybe stood out to you so far?
Yeah, I mean, first off, like shout out, like you said, shout out to HBO and shout out to Dart. I think Dart did a phenomenal job of just like articulating like the state of Boston and then also giving that history of Boston. So I was
Yeah.
just like, man, being someone who moved to Boston in the late '90s and not having that history, it was like, wow, like, understanding like where the tension began and then
Hmm.
and also understanding how, basketball really, is a tool to bring everyone together. So I was just like, I was blown away just by, the use of basketball and how, the Celtics really like, even with like, I think it was Red Auerbach, how, they were really like doing some like civil rights type stuff with
Yeah.
basketball by just bringing in like, black athletes onto the team. So I was just like, yo, this is crazy. And then, again, as I said, it's a history lesson, and Boston has, its history, and it's not as, perfect as, it's portrayed in media. But I think it's a documentary that's honest, right? With
Yeah.
what like where we're like where were things we're at during that time and then where we're at now. So I'm excited to see, this like this episode with Reggie, and also knowing like his impact like in the
Right.
city. You know what I mean? So but yeah, I think it's a I gotta take some days off of work to really like go back and like absorb a lot of the episodes, but I am looking forward to like this next one on the 14th.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's one of those pieces of content where I'm enjoying the slow drip. Everyone's so used to now, like everything's just immediately available. You binge every
Yeah,
episode, and I kind of like the slow drip of being able to watch, think about what I just watched, and then take it in. But I do think like once you've done that once, like I do think it's kind of interesting to sometimes watch these things then together when you have that base and you
yeah,
see just all in like maybe one sitting of like 3 episodes, which is 3 hours of time, but like you see like a real depiction of these aren't going necessarily in perfect 10-year increments, but it's nearly 3 decades of the city of Boston, not just the Celtics going from Cousy and Russell to Havlicek
yeah,
and Cohen's to Bird and the big three, but it shows you that whole era. And like you said, in this last episode, it kind of gets to this void that we just talked about, where after you get to that Bird, Parrish, McHale, big three, and they were looking to kind of extend that legacy. And you run into these two tragedies. The first of which is in 1986 when they draft Len Bias, and then he passes away within 48 hours of being drafted. And that was supposed to be the next link to the lineage, which is really crazy when you look at the Celtics as a whole, just how
yeah,
the organization has gone directly, almost directly, seemingly each time, from the Cousy Russell to the Havlicek Cohens to the Bird and the big three. And then you get to this void here where there's two big figures, and we're going to get to the second one here in just a second. But I think the Len Bias part of it is so fascinating because, a lot in the documentary during the 80s is talked about, obviously two out of the big three, let's just be real, they're Caucasian, right? And so everyone's looked at as Boston is this white only city. And, I think it's interesting listening to some of the people that were talking about, like, some black guys that like wanted to support, but they're like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can support, like, because it's so branded as this white team, even though the fact that 8 out of the 12 guys are black on the team, right? Like, it happens to be that there are two of the main guys that are white, and so then you theoretically we're about to inject Len Bias into this mix, and I'm just curious, is that something that you've ever thought of? Because it's something I try to look back on. It's like, man, I wonder what it would have been like to wake up in 1993 and Len Bias is, a 5-time All-Star. And all of a sudden, that's my favorite player growing up instead of, trying to figure out who Dina Raja is. Like, I wonder what that looks like. So, what were your thoughts on just the Len Bias part of the documentary? And then in general, your thoughts on what Len Bias could have been?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think, having someone like Len Bias on the team would have contributed to potential championships. And then how it is, like when a team begins to win championships, like they have a lot of pull, right? They could get certain players, like, you know what I mean? So who knows what would have been able to like change for the Boston scene,
Right.
you know what I mean?
The butterfly effect gets real hazy at that point, because who knows what it means for where we're at today. Maybe it means no Jason Tatum. Like, we really don't know.
Yeah. Or, I mean, just think of it this way. Like, when the Bulls began winning, like, I mean, yeah, they had Tony Kukoc, they had, Steve Kerr and all of that, but
Luke Longley in the paint, yeah,
I mean, yeah, like they predominantly their team was black, you know what I'm saying? So, and no one's looking at Chicago as like, oh, Chicago's white, like it's white. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I think going back to what we were saying, just like how Boston is portrayed, where it's like it's very education focused. There's a lot of universities there. We don't have a big music scene where it's like, oh, we have all these. It's not like a New York, you know what I'm saying? So like we kind of tote ourselves as like education here, MIT, Harvard, da 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 da. And then also the Celtics and the sports teams that we
right. Those are the two staples basically of we got education and we got sports, and that's what we're hanging on to.
I don't know if it would have like changed the narrative, like had we gotten Len Bias's like the Len Bias being able to play his whole career. Like, I don't know. Like, I really can't, you can't really tell, but I think for the most part, like with Bill Russell, you had him come out and really just show a lot of love to the black businesses with Slades, you know what I mean? So it's like, who knows, had Len Bias been alive and be able to play his career, what contributions he would have had in the community. Right. So, but yeah, I don't know, man.
And I think that's the biggest question mark, because that's what I was thinking of, like, as you were talking and as I was kind of going through this in my own head, is I was thinking of those images of Bill Russell running camps that were, in Roxbury, and then Slades, like you talked about, and it's like, I wonder what that would have looked like, had this tragedy not happened. And so, from that, just from an on-court perspective, you get this older group that's kind of trying to hang on. They're trying to, continue this legacy. And then ultimately that's going to lead to where they're getting to in this next episode here in chapter 7, which is, aptly titled Not Again. Right. And that's going to bring us into kind of the next guy who was supposed to be, along with Len Bias, the usher into that next generation, which would have been our generation, right? That we're becoming, hooked into. And that's, of course, Reggie Lewis, who, is somebody that went to Northeastern, was a local kid from Maryland, which is interesting, again, with the Len Bias ties of him going to Maryland. So you have that connection again. But Reggie Lewis, coming out of Northeastern, gets drafted to the Celtics, starting to make his mark. And of course, they're going to get to his tragic story here in this next episode. But along with that, Peter, I know that you guys have a special launch that you guys are doing with this episode here that really speaks to Reggie Lewis's legacy. So I'm going to ISO out here, and I want you to kind of tell the people what's happening Monday night in coordination with Celtic City episode 7.
Yeah. So like this is probably like our biggest like drop like as of this year. So we had an opportunity to collaborate with RCC. This is their 30th anniversary of having the Reggie Lewis Center, and yeah, so we partnered with them to basically like commemorate Reggie, and then basically just like highlight the fact that Reggie came out to Boston, playing at Northeastern, and then not only just like being an athlete, but being like someone from the community contributed. And we wanted to highlight that with this campaign. So, it's the campaign slogan is "From Roxbury to the World." And we named it that because, a lot of folks who, grew up in Boston, we played at the Reggie Lewis Center. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of events that happen at the community center. So from track and field, basketball tournaments, and, just the fact that like the athletic center has been part of the community for so long. And the folks that went there, you know, basically embodies the values that Reggie Lewis has, and then also the shared values with RCC, and we wanted to commemorate that with the jersey. So we're dropping the jersey Monday night at 9 p.m. and we're gonna basically just like put out this dope content that highlights the people that were that embodies Reggie's mission and all of that. So we got Dart on that. We got Bakuru, who's also a Celtic ball boy. Shout out to him for being a part of the campaign. And folks from RCC as well. So I'm excited about that, man. Like this is really like one of my biggest projects in terms of being able to like incorporate storytelling, product, and community. So I was just like, man, it's all coming together. All the folks that are that I respect are working on this, so
yeah. And I think honestly, this is really cool because I think this upcoming episode is probably the one I've been the most excited for, realizing how they were setting up this documentary. And part of it's what you mentioned, like the Reggie Lewis Center. Like Reggie ultimately passes away probably right before I'm really cognizant of basketball, and that's when the Celtics it all fell apart. Like from just a competitive standpoint, because that's once he passes away, Larry's gone, McHale's gone, Parrish is at the tail end, and then you got this new wave of D Brown and Brian Shaw and these other guys who would have been fine role players, but certainly weren't going to carry the torch the same way. And so as a kid, like there wasn't a ton to grab onto until we get Antoine Walker, Paul Pierce a few years later.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of my first memories are more like Jordan centric, or it's college basketball centric with Marcus Camby and UMass. Like those are some of the more prevalent first memories. And so when you think of Reggie Lewis, like for me, like it took me a while until I got older to really go back and like I knew the story, I knew he went to Northeastern, but to really kind of like dig in and look at who this guy was, who he was as a player, who he was as a person, like you said, the Reggie Lewis Center was my connection to Reggie Lewis, and that's what I'm sure a lot of people's connection is. And like you said, there's so many different events that happen there that I can't imagine the numbers of Bostonians that have gone through the Reggie Lewis Center, right? Like you said, whether it's a track event, whether it's a basketball event, Boston Latin School, where I went to high school, that is the for practice, that's where they run to every single day is the Reggie Lewis Center. So for the one season that I pretended to do track, that's where I was 2 days a week. I wasn't a good track athlete, but get in shape for other sports as tried it out for a year. But the Reggie Lewis Center has been such a staple that when you're driving in that area, that's always kind of the landmark of when you pass the Reggie Lewis Center. That's before everybody has GPS in their phones. We not to age us, we remember these days when you're driving around, it's like if you've gone to the Reggie Lewis Center, you've gone too far. You got to go past the Reggie Lewis Center on your left, right? Like that's going to be the landmark that you look at. And so I'm really fascinated to see the reaction of a lot of people that fall into kind of, slightly above and slightly below our age range that, know the story, maybe weren't quite as connected to it in the early to mid 90s when it happened, but get a chance to now see it depicted here. And so I'm super excited for this. I know obviously you and Dart have been working very closely on this drop here. And so, yeah, if you guys are looking for this pre-order, and correct me if I'm wrong, man, only 200 available, right? It's a very limited edition.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys got to be on your shit here. You got to be on it, man. So if you're watching us on YouTube, like you should, make sure you guys are following at Mathmatik_athletics on Instagram. We'll be doing our part here. Check out the YouTube show notes. Check out the podcast notes on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to. We'll have more information in there. But man, this is a really, really exciting endeavor that you guys are putting out here. And yeah, just anything else that you'd want to tell the people about how they can get their hands on one of these limited edition, what they should be doing. And I know you said it's going to line up with the episode here, so make sure you give the people the exact details that they need.
Yeah, so tune in. We will make it live Monday night, and the pre-orders are gonna run or lap. Like we're closing the pre-order April 28th. So
Okay.
just to give enough time for folks to make a purchase, and then yeah, we got a bunch of content, man. I'm excited to drop some stuff. So I got in my Spike Lee bag for this one. So
I love it, man. Well, send it over to us. We'll make sure we get the word out there. And then you kind of touched on this. I want to save it here for the end because we've got as we're recording this, there's 2 regular season games left, and then the playoffs are hitting. And I know you guys started doing some watch parties throughout this season, had a couple of them this year. Anything planned for the postseason, or what's that look like?
So right now, we're locked in with like two more watch parties. So we're looking to do a playoff run, and then I'm hoping and praying to do a finals watch party. So right now we got 2 in the books. We're just trying to figure out the right date for the next one next month. But yeah, like we'll post a lot of our ads and stuff for this next watch party. So it's gonna be dope, man. It's more giveaways. We got the shoot your shot. We started doing that at the recent watch party. So basically, it's like it's almost like a carnival type, environment where you get to play games, win prizes, a lot of activations at the High Street place.
Is that where these other ones will be? High Street Place as well?
Yep, 100 High Street Place. So it's a dope experience. Amazing food. We got like some James Beard, award winning restaurants. A bunch of it's cool, man. Caveman.
Check it out, man. I'll tell you, I've seen the videos, man. This is a place that you guys want to be if you're looking to watch a game, be around other Celtics fans, and have a good time, eat some good food. This is going to be a spot that you guys want to be at. But before I get you out of here, man, give me your thoughts on the Celtics team here and them making a run. Like you said, this isn't, we've been talking a lot about like the documentary fashion, all that. Let's talk a little hoop here for a minute or two before we get you out of here. What you thinking about this team going on that run and bringing back Banner 19?
Yeah, I mean, I feel confident. I feel confident enough to put money behind another watch party for June. But again, I don't want to put any woo woo or whatever, you know what I mean? I want to
any juju out there. Yeah, I got you.
I'm not trying to jinx anything, but I feel confident on what we might be able to do come June. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing like how the playoff turn out. What's your take?
I mean, honestly, like up until this Jaylen Brown knee situation, that's probably the only thing that's got me a little reserved right now is let's see what's going on with Jaylen Brown's knee by the time we get a little bit of time off. I'm very pleased that finally this week they cut the let's get to 65 game stuff to like he probably wasn't going to make third team All NBA anyways, which is a different story. But, I'm glad they kind of put it on ice and we'll see because I really do think when you look at the Eastern Conference, I respect the Cavs. I think the Cavs have had an amazing season. I think they're actually a really good basketball team. They're just not as good as us. That's just what I have seen. In that for them to beat us 4 times in 7 games, it
Yep.
feels like a stretch. And they're the only team in the East that I can see with the right combination of, we're not going to we wouldn't play them until the conference finals, and a lot can happen.
Right.
Injuries, different things like that. So if the Celtics are whole, I don't see anything that can stop them from getting back to the finals. And then the West is a beast, man. I don't know what's going to happen in the West. Like, the Thunder seem like the Thunder are the best team, but there's such a larger group of depth below that, and they're still a young team where they got to prove it. And if they get to the finals, I think that means that they've probably proved some stuff along the way. And that's the one team I look at for the Celtics, that their depth, their versatility, that can be a problem for this team. But they got to get there first. And like I said, if they do get there, I think it likely means that they've shown some of the stuff that we're questioning on April 11th. By the time we get to early June, they've probably answered some of those questions if they're going to get there. And if they don't, I don't think there's a complete enough team in the West that should beat the Celtics. So to me, that's what I'm looking at. So for your perspective, as far as putting some money behind this, I think you're doing the right thing. I think this is the right way to go. And so I feel pretty confident, but we got to see how things play out here over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree, man. And like OKC, they gave us a problem when we saw them. So
right.
Yeah, we'll see, man. But yeah,
we'll see. But that should be a good one, man. But Peter, I appreciate you coming on the show here, man. Like I said, for those of you interested in the Reggie Lewis jersey drop happening on Monday night, make sure you are following at Mathmatik_athletics on IG. Follow us at Green MV Pod. We'll be reposting some of that as well. Check the show notes. We will have info for you as well there that you can go and check this out. Peter, I appreciate you, man. Loving what you guys got going on here. So appreciate you showing love, and wish you the best with the drop on Monday night.
Thank you, bro. Take it easy.
All right, guys, that'll do it for this episode here of Green with Envy. Playoffs are coming. We got a big playoff preview coming for you guys that will be dropping either Sunday or Monday. So hang in there with us, and we will catch you guys later. Peace.